It's great to have everybody. I am very excited to have today's discussion, not only because it's a milestone for us at Voice, getting Verbit involved. We've been following Verbit's path since we started in this business 5 years ago. Really one of the leading companies out there that's on the front lines of so many areas of conversational design. And ASR is certainly one of those. But today, we're going to be talking about accessibility, the importance of accessibility, how to incorporate it into both your thinking, your design thinking, but also your products, but also just part of your strategy. And we're going to showcase why that is so important. I'm going to let our panelists go ahead and do their introductions. I am going to turn it over to our co-panelists, Scott Reddy and Irit Ofer. I'm going to let them do their introductions because I've been so troubleshooting here. I don't have my slide up. So Scott, I hope you don't mind. Go ahead and do your introduction and we'll do Irit and then we'll get started.
Sounds great. Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Reddy, and I am the Global Head of Accessibility and Inclusion here at Verbit. Been with Verbit now, this is my 4th year, and have been working to create greater inclusion within captioning, transcription, and translation, as well as audio description. Prior to Verbit, I worked at Blackboard for 14 years and oversaw accessibility for the last 5 years there. And prior to that, I was in higher ed. I was a department chair and interpreter for an interpreter training program, where we took the program from a face-to-face to a fully online program. As you can see with the gray hair, I won't go through all of my career, but I really got my start when my parents were instructors at the Missouri School for the Deaf. Yes, my parents were both deaf. And at the age of 3, we lived on campus and actually had some fantastic mentors that really helped to give me a very strong start in taking a look at accessibility. And so with that, I'll stop. And Irit, you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Pete. So I'm Irit. I manage the research group at Verbit. Been with Verbit a little over a year, working in research, AI, machine learning, and speech recognition for, I don't know, more than 25 years, so I stopped counting. This is a really great opportunity for me to combine 2 of my interests, which is, of course, scientific and machine learning, into machines or systems that can be of help to people. So voice AI for accessibility is something that I've been working on for a few years already, both in academic institutes and also in various high-tech companies, and really happy to be here today.
Thank you, Scott and Irit. Scott, if you can go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about today's presentation. And also just mention that if you're not familiar yet, Voice Summit is coming up in just over 2 weeks, October 10th through 12th. Verbit is a sponsor of that event, and it's a very proud undertaking of mine. We started Voice 5 years ago, and we've all been disrupted the last couple of years with COVID, and we haven't been able to get together. So in just over 2 weeks, we're going to get maybe about 1,000 people back together in this industry. And what's really nice is the industry's really matured. Verbit has been way out front on this, but the industry has matured very nicely. We're post-hype cycle in conversational AI. So the conversations that are going to happen at Voice are going to be very deep and very involved in all kinds of implementations across all industries. We're going to hear about some of those industries today. And with today's presentation, today's webinar, we're going to really talk again about the role that voice plays in accessibility. Had a really fabulous conversation this week with Ronel Sinus, and he is the voice that is going to be going to the moon in the Artemis 1 mission. He's a quadriplegic, and it is really eye-opening just how important of a role voice is playing sort of across the board. So we're going to go through each step here, all the way down to the secret sauce and a glimpse into the future. We're really looking forward to today's presentation. This is an active conversation, so please weigh in and use the Q&A feature on this if you can. Of course, the chat will be active as well, but use the Q&A feature and we will look forward to your questions and answers. We'll get to them in real time if we can. If not, we'll save them to the end, or we'll do an email follow-up with you for maybe some of the more technical questions. That said, I think we're ready to get started here, and I'll turn it back over to Scott and Irit. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter. Just in case there's anybody that is not familiar with Zoom, as Peter said, this is going to be interactive. So if on your control bar that you see there for Zoom, it might be hidden under more, but you'll see raise hand. And I'm going to ask you all to participate. And your indication is going to be raising your hand. So let me ask you, how many of you have a voice-activated device that you use just for your own personal pleasure, maybe at home, maybe in the car? How many of you, by a show of hands, use some kind of voice-activated device? I would hope everybody on this call would have their hand raised for that, because we're all kind of in this industry, and this is an area of interest for all of us. I know I would just went out and bought 2 new light bulbs that are Bluetooth, and I can now go, Alexa, turn on the lights. And my lamps turn on. I can say, Alexa, turn lights down 50%. While I'm watching TV, my lights dim to 50%. All of those things are very exciting, and you know, being somewhat a geek, I enjoy that kind of ability to use my voice and make those changes. I'm sure you all have lots of stories as to ways that you are also being able to control different things around your house, around your workplace. But let me ask you, when you start thinking about an individual that might not have the manual dexterity to be able to turn on a light, or an individual that might not be able to turn down the temperature, or to turn up the temperature, or to change the channel on the TV. Some of those very basic things that we all take for granted for some individuals, requires that they ask somebody else to do that for them, up until voice AI. So think about the independence. Think about the ability to be more included in the workplace. I'm sure as I've been talking, you've been looking at the slide here as to the different ways that we've listed here. But what I would love to do is to have you hear from an individual who is actually using this. How many of you have actually received a text message on your phone that somebody sent to you and obviously used the microphone to send the text message? And that text message that you received, you read it and you were kind of like, what? I didn't understand what you were saying. And they go, oh, Siri. We've all had those experiences because the accuracy of that text message was not clear. But again, think about somebody that might have a speech impediment, that might have even more of a challenge in communicating clearly, but yet still needs voice AI. That's who we're going to take a look at right here. So let me go to this next screen. and be able to share this with you. Here we go. So as you can see here with Nat, being able to go in and to do things independently has completely changed his life. So no longer is he dependent upon having to have somebody else to do that for.
Okay, next we would like to relate to how do we apply voice AI in today's workplaces. So the example that Scott just shared earlier actually allows Nat to do his work. And there are other use cases, some of which we'll just mention here, that are relying on voice accessibility that are already being implemented in workplaces. So the first use case that I want to relate to is accessibility using voice as an input. I'll just refer to the chat. Yeah, I also think that we had, Scott, an issue with the audio. Maybe you will need to stop sharing, share again with the audio, and maybe play the video, or at least part of it again.
I just changed the settings, so I apologize for that. So the audio should work now.
Okay, so maybe we'll revisit the video in a minute. Thanks. So the first use case, again, is accessibility using voice as an input. So voice-activated technologies allow people who has issues with using their hands, either temporarily or permanently, either a disability or some affecting an operation that they underwent, or some I don't know, somebody broke their arm or something and cannot type. So we have, for many years, we've had dictation of documents, and also nowadays we have very easy voice-activated control, even for developers to code without their hands. Another form of AI, voice AI accessibility, is inclusion through voice to text. So in the first example, voice was our input. In the second example, voice is actually the input that is being transformed or translated into text to promote inclusion and accessibility. So we are all aware, even here, to the possibility of automatic transcription of meetings. We'll also discuss, Scott and I will relate to that a little further in our webinar. Many companies already have captioning of all internal material and also of all outgoing marketing and commercial content. Now, this allows a person who are deaf or hard of hearing to actually consume and be aware of everything that is going on in the company, at the office, and in meetings. Another interesting feature is transforming complex conversations into intelligible language. Now, there are two use cases that I'm aware of for this kind of inclusion, which is either people with some cognitive challenges or people with ADHD or other difficulties that are having a really hard time following a complex auditory conversation and making sense out of it, okay? Complex higher education or high school lessons, or like commentators in around elections or around very complex occasions. So in these cases, the conversation is at the same time being translated into voice through voice to text, but also being summarized automatically to produce a more easier notes to follow. And the last option that I want to discuss, and is also relevant to communication within a workplace, is accessibility through text to speech. So imagine a person that cannot speak. Again, it can be temporary or permanent, but they do want to continue communication with their co-workers. So text to speech today allows people to actually communicate almost freely. I mean, of course, they would need to type, but after they type, their textual input is transformed into voice, which is much more, I would say, natural in a conversation rather than a two-sided conversation where one side only types and the other only speaks. Okay, so it promotes communication and inclusion in workplaces.
And we've got an example of this that we'd like to share with you as to how this is enabling individuals within the workplace to succeed.
Okay, Hound. Schedule a half-hour meeting on Thursday with Morris and Karen about the launch party.
Okay, it looks like next Thursday at 1 p.m. is the first available 30-minute time slot. Would you like to book a room?
Yes, please book a room that has a TV and a phone.
Okay, it looks like the Lactica is open. Shall I book it and send out the invitation?
Yep.
Great, I've scheduled your meeting and sent out the invitation.
Okay, Hound. Start the meeting.
You've joined the meeting launch party.
Okay, Hound. Is everyone here?
Looks like Morris has accepted but is not here yet. Should I message him?
Yes, please.
Okay, sending a meeting reminder message to Morris.
Hey Brian, is Ray coming?
Oh, you know what? I forgot to let her know. Okay, Hound. Please invite Ray.
Okay, sending the meeting invitation to Ray.
What an example of being able to just give voice commands and have them understand what that voice command is and enabling it to then conduct whatever you're asking it to do. As somebody said earlier, I wish there was a voice command in Zoom that we could just say, enable CC to be the captioner and just be done with it. It would have made our lives so much easier. But anyway, I digress. Going back to our slides here. We have some examples here of where Verbit has been working with our partners to enable their lives to be better and to enable our partners' objectives to be accomplished. I want to share a couple of those with you. So for example, one of our partners is the Library of Congress. They have media archives and they also have live events that they deliver. One of the quotes from our main champion there said, fulfilling our mission to make resources available to everyone. Again, not waiting until an item is requested, not waiting till somebody raises their hand and says, I need this to be captioned. They are being proactive in enabling all of their content to be captioned. Another partner of ours is Rose Lee and Associates. Now, this organization is a science management, and they study and prepare for future research investments. The quote from our main champion there says, captions is important when attendees' first language is not English or aging with a hearing loss. So again, this is a different population that they are serving, that they realize that captioning is critical for the success of their business. The third one that I wanted to share with you today is the Motley Fool. And you might have seen them, their investment and stock guidance. And their quote was, the stock market declined around 30%. To reassure members, they implemented to a 40-hour-a-week live streams. And in that, they had to produce accessible live video. So again, captioning what used to be thought of as a service for individuals that are just deaf and hard of hearing is now really being used for everybody. So how does this then couple with voice AI? Well, as a company, Irit and her team and a lot of others throughout the company have been doing a lot of work in developing our own proprietary AI and ASR in order to be able to provide our partners a cost-effective way of being able to caption. So we use voice AI in producing what we produce.
So now that we have witnessed quite a few use cases and examples of relying on voice AI, we'd like to deep dive a little bit into a very important question in our opinion, which is, does voice AI actually democratize accessibility? So we are aware that there are quite a few built-in free captioning abilities in some web conferencing solutions. One of them was even mentioned in the chat here. And indeed, these are available nowadays in many, many applications. Now, I'm not sure that everyone is aware of what kind of effort is required from a hard of hearing or a deaf person that is relying on this a captioning mechanism. Okay, so imagine you're in a classroom and the teacher is speaking. They have a good microphone connected to their shirt, so the audio stream is good, and the automatic captioning is also good. But of course, there is a slight delay because ASR takes some time. And so this person needs to integrate inputs from various modalities. Some of them are not synchronized. Imagine this person is able to do lip reading. So at least has partial understanding of what the teacher is speaking, but the teacher is not necessarily always facing the camera or the classroom. And let's say even the teacher is also writing something on the whiteboard. So imagine that you are a deaf person and you need to integrate inputs from multiple modalities where some of them are not synchronized. No, sorry, I did not see the question. So I'll let Scott continue while I look at the question.
Well, go ahead, Iri, and then we'll come back to the question here in just a moment.
Okay, so Scott, what do you feel, or what is your opinion around the use of such free captioning solutions and around this need to integrate multiple modalities inputs? And I will relate to the question in a minute.
Great. Well, you know, Iri, sometimes individuals feel like, well, the free services are better than nothing, and at least we're getting something across. And even though the accuracy might be very low, something's better than nothing. But to tell you the truth, from an accessibility perspective, that's not always the case. Because what happens is that even by providing something, there is a false sense of we have provided an accommodation or we have bridged the gap in the communication, when in reality, we haven't. We've just created more confusion. So let me give you an example. There was a free service where I was watching the captioning, and the person that was speaking was talking about year-end analysis. So the two words were year-end analysis. And those are really critical to understand the context of what was being discussed. But what came across the captions was urine analysis. Now, with that, as you can imagine, if you did not hear what the person was saying and you saw that as what was being captioned, you're sitting there and cognitively you're trying to process and figure out, what does urine analysis have to do with everything else that we are discussing? And not being an auditory person, you wouldn't necessarily think urine analysis, oh, that should be year-end analysis, because there's no visual likeness between those two. So from an accessibility perspective, I don't think that just providing something is better than nothing.
So thank you, Scott, for this perspective. I would like to mention in this regard that indeed accuracy may vary in different use cases, in different domains, in different acoustics. And this is why, for example, relying on domain-specific terminology and adapting the automatic transcription to the specific session or specific domain, or in some cases to the specific acoustic environment or accents, is actually crucial to ensure a good experience, and to have the person who needs to rely on the captions for accessibility to actually like to use it and agree to use it. So, and yes, we are all aware of the cases where people may choose, to turn them off, definitely. Cool. So let me just walk you through a little bit to what we feel is the secret sauce to successful voice AI, and share with you a little bit of what we're doing at Verbit. So at Verbit, we combine our industry expertise to help businesses and other customers become more inclusive. So as Scott mentioned earlier, we have our own research team and our own very large R&D team that is constantly working on developing and improving our technologies. And what we have, which is really our secret sauce, is the interaction with the humans. Okay, our whole offering is based on human and machine hybrid solution. Now, it's not only the solution itself that is hybrid, but the constant feedback and interaction between the users, the customers, the captioners, transcribers. We actually have an ongoing by way of bilateral way of working together. And since we own and develop all our technology, we can even use it to train our captioners and to incorporate any feedback that we get from users and customers. Now, for example, one example is exactly what we discussed earlier, is our ability to do domain specialization and immediately realized when there is a gap in some terminology, in some different type of content, to actually go and close this gap so that accessibility for this use case, for this domain, will be better.
The nice thing too is that we own our own technology. So we're not dependent upon somebody else's technology. We're able to actually go in and to truly improve this.
Right.
So, Irene,
So
let's tell us a little bit about how you see this in the future. I think we're all interested in how this is continuing to develop, and if you have your crystal ball, what would you see happening, taking place in the future?
sure. So here we try to gather quite a few examples. Some of them are already being implemented around the world in academic institutes, research institutes, or in commercial companies. Some of them are still, being conceptualized, okay? And these are, of course, only a few of them. And that's also, by the way, a place where I would love to hear, the participants' ideas around what else can be done with voice AI to improve accessibility. So just a glimpse to the future. So we saw earlier, and I hope, Scott, you'll play the video again.
I will.
So people can hear the personalized voice assistant that was adapted to the person's voice. Now imagine this system can also learn the person's routine, and their preferences. So they are really, really learning and adapting to this person's way of speaking, but also preferences in right after they open one window, they open the Outlook or whatever. So this is a highly personalized voice assistance for people with disabilities. Another cool idea that I'm not aware currently of a company that actually achieves this, but I think it's a worthy goal, is to have voice-activated video games. Now, I mean, you all know kids are now way into video games. Most of them are activated through some game pads and require very fast handwork. Now, imagine we could have these with voice activated and allowing a kid with disability actually take part in a large party of young kids who are playing video games. I'll jump to one other option, one of my favorites here. And this is also, as far as I know, has not been fully implemented as a commercial activity, and that's using voice conversion. So we explained a little bit earlier what text-to-speech is, right? Synthesizing a textual input to be spoken out loud. Now, imagine there's a parent who is going to have an operation that would unfortunately make him not able to speak again, either temporarily or forever. But this is a parent who still wants to communicate with their kid, either reading them a story or just speaking to them. Okay, imagine we can do this, and the technology is available today. Again, I'm not sure that it's an app that is already working on this. And we can have voice conversion and actually produce synthesized voice in our own voice. So instead of communicating with some mechanical or even friendly, but not our own voice with our loved ones, we could do that provided we keep recordings of our voices from before we lose our ability to speak. So I think this is a very optimistic note to close the options of glimpsing into the future of voice AI.
And then if I could just add to that, my goal is that we don't need accommodations, that voice AI improves the environment that we're trying to engage with, have it be a digital environment, a physical environment, and that it just makes it available for all individuals to be able to use. So that now, when we think about a current accommodation that is made available for an individual with disabilities, such as a ramp that was added onto a building that only had stairs. But now we see within architecture that ramps are just built in throughout the design so that there's zero gravity inclines in order to be able to enter into buildings. That is my goal for all of us that work in this area, to be able to improve the environments so that everybody just automatically has access. So we've had one question that was asked into the Q&A, but are there any others that would like to just ask a question or type it into the Q&A section?
Thanks, Scott, and thanks, Arit. This has been a fantastic presentation. I want to challenge everybody. What comes to mind? What sort of things comes to mind? Also, any comments? Are you actively working on accessibility issues? Yeah, this is just a great opportunity to have a bit of a free flow chat here. So anything come to mind, just put it in the QA or in the chat. And Scott and Arit really appreciate all this detailed info.
While we're waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and queue up the video that I didn't have the audio turned on for.
Perfect.
And we'll watch that. Please, everybody, as Peter has said, please go ahead and add that into the chat. And we'll go back to Nat's video so that we can see exactly how he uses this. Okay, here it is.
Nat's a 34-year-old male with cerebral palsy. My son. He lives for sports. So Nat has his dream job. He works for the Phillies.
I walk in Mandarin, I do the road and the dance.
He has the same hopes and aspirations that most people do. Cerebral palsy is an aspect of his life, but it's certainly not his life.
I got the egos.
When we lived in the last house, any little mechanical need that he needed to adjust, whether it was the TV getting louder, turning a light on because it was dark, any of these things, that fell to us. He had to call to us to take care of it. We were in and out of that room constantly to adjust things like the volume of the TV, or the channel would change, or the room got dark and we needed to turn lights on, or we needed to adjust the shades on the windows.
I got Don TV on.
I think one of the important things that Voice has brought to us is a little bit of liberation, not only in the day-to-day, but in terms of adopting things as they come forward.
I got WIP. I don't have to call my mom and dad in, or my assistant, and tell them, hey, I need this, I need that. I can do it independently. I got right on.
So Voice has actually given Nat an opportunity to touch so many more things that are now in the mainstream. This allows him to do the same things other people do and more with his house. And that's what Voice has opened for us.
I did it all the time. I did the things that on the TV. I did Voice and do everything.
So as we think about things like this, it should motivate us. It should instill within us an intrinsic motivation that what we're doing isn't just making life easier, but it's enabling individuals to really have that independence.
I have to tell you, that's very powerful. That's a very powerful video, Scott. It's really, really, really cool. And And we did have another question come in, another from Viraj. I'm going to read it here. Can you also talk a little bit about the voice synthesis angle, even if the Verbit technology is more focused on the TTS direction? It'd be nice to hear your thoughts on the technology working to improve the other direction too.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Speech synthesis or text-to-speech has improved tremendously in the past, I don't know, something like 5 to 10 years, okay? Starting like 30 years ago with very mechanical, format-based synthesizers that I think we all are familiar from, movies where robots talk, mechanically. And nowadays, we are even being able, through very a large advancements of the technology, what is referred to usually as neural or DNN-based TTS. Technology allows people to synthesize different voices. Earlier also used voice conversion, and then actually it's enough to donate, I don't know, record a few minutes, I think, of a person's voice to be able to generate a decent text-to-speech in their own voice. Still, the challenges are around what we call prosody, so which is all the information in a speech signal that is not the actual content, and around what is also experienced as pleasantness or naturalness of the synthesized voice. And also, in many cases, actually similar challenges that some ASR systems have, like pronunciation of very unfamiliar names or unknown words. So I don't know if that was that answered the question, but that's what I'm aware of regarding text-to-speech.
And thanks, Viraj, for the great question. And if you like, we can definitely, and there we go, great answer. So very, very well done, Irit. And Scott, I want to thank you both again. I just put it into the chat. If you haven't decided to come join us at Voice yet, we're going to have the Verbit team on site at Voice. Definitely come to the event if you can. It's going to be a fabulous gathering of this industry, people coming from around the globe. I just got a message from our friends at Cathay Pacific Airlines in Hong Kong that they've lifted their restrictions finally, and they're coming to the conference. They're really thrilled. So we have people coming from around the world. It's going to be a tremendous few days, and we hope that we can see you there. Verbit's going to be in booth number 140. Scott and Reed, any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
I just very much look forward to meeting everybody in person and learning from your all's experiences and how we can continue to apply this to my heart, and that's accessibility. Thank you for coming and participating here today.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, and thank you for the great questions.
Yeah, and thanks to thanks to our panelists, outstanding presentation, and thanks to everybody who participated today. Again, we're going to we've recorded this. We're going to make it available on demand, and it will have captions with it. So we look forward to getting that out to you as a follow-up as well. So that's it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.